Coming to paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this all-new Spinsterella story. Pre-order your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. Many people who work in film and television in Los Angeles are having a hard time finding jobs. And many who move to Los Angeles are scratching their heads wondering why they're having such a hard time finding jobs in film and television. However, what they don't understand is how the entertainment business changed in Hollywood and how that led to many people winding up in a position where they're not able to get work. And the reason why they can't get work is because the entire business of Hollywood has completely changed. Now, some are speculating that the reason why people are struggling to find jobs in Hollywood today is because of the SAG-AFTRA and WGA strikes of 2023, but the real reason why people are having a hard time finding jobs has to do with a piece of federal legislation known as the Telecom Act of 1996. Now, the Telecom Act of 1996 was a law pushed through Congress by Republicans who had control of the House and the Senate in 1996, and because Bill Clinton was caught up in the scandal with Monica Lewinsky, he wound up being forced to sign this piece of legislation that led to the deregulation of American media and basically led to Hollywood winding up in a place where its entire business model completely changed as the whole media platforms started to consolidate with each other. Now, the Telecom Act of 1996, what it did was make it where the regulations that were in place that were supposed to ensure that we were supposed to get diversity of thought as related to TV stations, movies, and magazines and TV shows. This whole series of regulations were put in place to ensure that only one person could own one newspaper, one radio station, one TV station, and one magazine in a local area to ensure that we would be able to maintain freedom of the press and freedom of expression and maintain, again, diverse viewpoints from different platforms and ensure that we would not have one wealthy person dictating the opinions and viewpoints through the media and control the media and turn it into propaganda. That's what the federal regulations were made to be put in place, but the Republicans did not want this legislation there. They thought that we'd be able to foster competition. Ironically, when this law was passed, all it did was basically make it where we went from having competition to having no competition at all. Now, when it came down to the deregulation of media, what happened almost immediately in less than 5 years after the Telecom Act was passed was major corporations started buying up a lot of the newspapers, TV stations, and magazines, and even more so started buying up smaller production companies that were the lifeblood of Hollywood, because Hollywood's business was not usually done by the major movie studios. No, it was usually done by the smaller production companies. The smaller production companies usually provided most of the jobs in Hollywood, whether it be those jobs in small budget films, which eventually in some cases became blockbusters, or it was the shows that were made by these production companies in places like Canada and Georgia that were made for syndication. That's where a lot of their profits came from. And then there were the made for video films that were sent direct to VHS tapes at the time. Again, a lot of people wound up getting jobs in those productions, and that's where a major portion of the jobs were. However, as corporations started to buy up the TV stations, the magazines, the newspapers, the magazines, and the TV studios and production companies, this led to a consolidation of media, And as we got this consolidation of media, those who were fortunate enough to get bought out as related to those small production companies were okay, but many others wound up going broke because they couldn't find a platform to put their content on. I mean, shows like Sinbad, The Beastmaster, Hercules, Xena, and Star Trek The Next Generation. Again, this is how many stations wound up making money and how many prodcos made money, because they would go out here and make this stuff small budget and again sell it in syndication and pull a profit on it. Then there were the direct-to-video companies where many actors who were, again, not top stars at the time, they could go out here and make a good living, start making direct-to-video movies, whether they be low-budget action movies or they be low-budget fluffy movies or low-budget softcore movies. Again, they could make a good living and be able to do well. However, the Telecom Act of '96 wound up wiping out most of those jobs, and as we entered into 2001 after 9/11, the number of TV stations owned by individuals dwindled down to zero, and we got 6 big corporations basically controlling almost all the media. Most of our media that since 2001 has been controlled by 6 companies, going on 4. I mean, we've gone from hundreds and thousands of production companies in the United States to things basically being controlled by Disney, Sony, Warner Brothers, GE, which is now Comcast, Paramount Global, which used to be Viacom, and another company that I just can't remember. But the whole thing is that all 6 of these companies have now dwindled down to 4. Oh, and the 6th one was News Corp, but Fox basically wound up selling to Disney, so now it's just 4, and Warner Brothers Discovery is just about on the brink of going out of business. So the number of people who control the media has dwindled down to about 6, going on 4. And if you want to throw in Netflix and Amazon, basically, again, not too many people. And that's basically one of the reasons why we don't have as many jobs in the entertainment industry. We don't have many jobs because of all of this consolidation. And because of all of this consolidation, we don't have competition. And without that competition, we don't have a diversity of content or diversity of thought. And we don't have executives in place to go out here and greenlight projects and take risks on them. That's one of the reasons why why there hasn't been much work coming out of Hollywood since 2001. If you look at Hollywood since 2001, the number of productions has steadily been declining, and the number of productions has been steadily declining because many of the studios have become consolidated, and as they've become consolidated, many of the CEOs are now more focused on the bottom line, and as they're focused on the bottom line of box office, they're no longer greenlighting films like they used to at the studios when the executives had to compete. Now, when these executives had to compete for the box office, we basically got a diversity of content. This is why we got films like many of the romantic comedies, why we got films like dramas, why we got films like these teen movies and films like the action movies. I mean, we got a whole lot of different kinds of movies all throughout the year. But what's been happening ever since the consolidation of media is as it's become corporatized, the corporate CEOs want to get the biggest box office, and that's led to them having tunnel vision, and that tunnel vision has led to them no longer looking to greenlight productions such as comedies, such as romantic comedies, such as action movies, or original concepts. No, what they want is a guaranteed box office return, and as they want a guaranteed box office return, what they have been doing is just greenlighting a handful of films, and unless that film is part of what was originally, again, a best-selling novel or a franchise, what was happening is that was all that was getting greenlit, and things got progressively even worse as related to television. Now, television in and of itself was struggling for a while and was not doing well But it got progressively worse when TV went digital in 2009. Now, again, many of those in Hollywood lobbied to change the TV signals from NSTC to ASTC, and they wanted to do this because they thought they would get a bigger spectrum. Moreover, the cell phone companies wanted to take over the ASTC or analog signals for cell phones, and they thought they were all going to do well in 2009 during the Great Recession. But what happened with the Great Recession was, as you took TV service away from most Americans who were struggling to pay their bills, was people stopped watching television and started watching the internet. And as that happened, ratings started to go down on many TV shows, and the ratings went down because people could not go out here and use their old TVs and didn't want to spend the money on new ones, or even spend $25 on those converter boxes the federal government offered people. No, people just charged TV to the game, and TV shows started losing their audience. They started losing their audience two ways. One was because people just did not want to go to ASTC TVs in HD. Two, people started cutting cable. And I'll throw in a third point. Again, people just stopped watching TV because many of these TV stations, as they went digital, started flooding the market with channels and sub-channels, and those sub-channels made it nigh impossible to find your favorite channel, and that led to the decline in ratings for TV stations from 2009 onward, because people just got frustrated because they got too many choices and it overwhelmed them. And eventually what happened was people started moving to the internet, and as they moved to the internet, TV shows started to see their ratings decline, and instead of shows getting the 25 million viewers they used to get for shows like The Cosby Show in the 1980s, many top shows like NCIS, which were doing 20 million viewers before TV went digital, started to only get 9 million viewers, and the audience started to go down. And when the audience started to go down, the ad revenue started to go down for many of these shows. Many of these shows' revenue started to go down, and Hollywood basically started to try to rely on its box office, but sadly they were not making unique films because many of these corporate executives and bean counters and nerds, basically all they were thinking about was box office, and eventually they all started to get tunnel vision, focusing only on basically three genres: superhero movies, or big budget blockbusters, or animated children's films, because they could go out here and make the biggest box office. And that basically limited people's choices as related to what they could watch, proving the point that the people who legislated television and movies wanted to make, that in order to get diversity of thought, we needed federal regulations, and those federal regulations ensured that there would be jobs. But as a result, what happened is all of this tunnel vision basically again led to the decline of Hollywood, and Hollywood was again going into a major decline, and basically found refuge in Netflix, where Netflix was spending money to pay for their content. However, as the pandemic came along, this is where the studios started to get greedy, and the studios started to look to make their own content. And as they looked to make their own content, what they did was go out here and get the money of venture capitalists to go out here and speculate on streaming. And as they looked to speculate on streaming, they thought that streaming was going to be the next big thing. They thought if they made lots of content and competed as related to their platforms such as Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime and Netflix, they would be able to create a new golden age of entertainment online. Unfortunately, what happened with that whole platform of streaming is that it basically was, again, one of those platforms that was not strong enough, because there was not enough audience there, because the whole pie of entertainment has become so fragmented, nobody can really get a good piece of that pie the way they were back from the 1940s to about the 1980s. Now, from the 1940s to the 1980s, there was a lot of pie. I mean, you only had three networks: CBS, NBC, and ABC, and they were getting basically 25% of the pie, whereas local channels like here on New York, like you had Channel 9, WWOR, WPIX, Channel 11, and Channel 5, and PBS, they would get the remaining 25%. So there was a lot of pie for everyone and a lot of viewers for a show. But after we came into 1987, Fox came in and the pie got smaller. Then in 1995, I think UPN came in and the pie got even smaller. Then the WB came along and the pie got even smaller. And then as Al Gore announced the 500 channel universe, the pie got extremely small. And these days the pie is so small, nobody can really even taste anything because there's so much content competing for a viewer's eyes in between television, movies, YouTube, and TikTok and other and streaming platforms. The market is so saturated with content that there's no way to even build an audience, and Hollywood was hoping to be able to build an audience again with streaming, and unfortunately as they were looking to build an audience with streaming, all of it was based on speculation that there would be a hope of many of these platforms turning into huge platforms, but that's never been the case for the entertainment business. No, as someone who has studied the entertainment business for over 25 years, I can tell you that nothing starts out as success early on. No, I can remember when Fox started in 1987. Fox struggled as a platform as they had shows like 21 Jump Street, Duet, Married with Children, and The Tracy Ullman Show. And many of the shows they had in between wound up getting canceled because they couldn't get an audience and they didn't want to keep taking losses on those shows. Same thing happened to UPN. They had many shows on that platform, and the WB as well. And if it wasn't for black audiences, they would not have taken off. If it wasn't for the black audience, many of these platforms would not have taken off. But these days, many of these platforms, they really don't want to even target the black audience with any sort of content outside of Netflix's Luke Cage, which crashed their servers. But the whole thing is that these days, when they did the Disney Plus, the Paramount Plus, and many of the other platforms that they decided to launch, many of those platforms really did not have good content, and yes, they greenlit a lot of content, speculating, hoping that they would be a success with all the captive audience from the pandemic. They thought they were going to get all these different people, all of this work, and all this money was pouring in from venture capitalists and hedge funds. They were basically pouring billions of dollars in, and that led to a whole lot of jobs in an entertainment industry which I know from experience is not a place where you go looking for stability. That's the big mistake many of today's people in entertainment made. They thought they were going to be able to come in and get jobs like they did at the GM plant, or their grandparents got at the GM plant, where you would work for 20 years, but that's never been the case. And if you ask anybody who's been in entertainment, who's seasoned, you know that when it comes to jobs in entertainment, working at the studios is a very unstable thing. When it comes to working in entertainment, whether you're working in film and television, your whole income stream is extremely erratic, because what can happen is you could be on a show today and that show could be canceled tomorrow, or you might go through filming 3-4 episodes and your show gets canceled either due to low ratings or it gets canceled due to backstage politics. It happens all the time, and anybody who works in entertainment, who's worked there for a long time, knows this is why people tell you gotta save your money. Moreover, they tell you to go out here and invest in other ventures. If you look at many of the old, late veteran actors like Fess Parker, he owned the Daniel Boone Show, but he also owned a winery and a hotel, because he understood this money, this revenue, again, stream basically dries up over time. Many of the veteran actors understood this, but today's people who work in entertainment, they don't know how very unstable the job market is in entertainment, and that's why a lot of them are scratching their heads trying to figure out why they're having a hard time finding jobs. Well, it's always been a hard time to find a job in the entertainment industry, and it's much harder now because over the last almost 30 years, the number of productions has been declining because many of the studios are no longer run by seasoned studio executives who go out here and take risks on projects. No, it's run by either accountant bean counter types in corporate America, or it's run by nerds who come from Silicon Valley who don't understand the entertainment business. And basically, because these people don't understand the entertainment business, they have tunnel vision and they're looking for guaranteed results like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they're looking for a guaranteed revenue stream when that's never been the business. Now, anyone who has been in and understood the business like I have, I've been studying this business ever since the 1980s, and back then people knew that there was risk, and as they knew it was risk, again, this is why people, again, were always looking for work, because they know that, again, it's hard to find a job in this business. Even when we had the days of regulation, it was always hard to find a job in entertainment. It was always hard to get those jobs, whether they be behind the camera or in front of the camera. And people who did get those jobs, thank God for those jobs, and they worked those jobs the best way they could. And as they worked, they basically lived below their means and maintained a low profile lifestyle because they didn't know where their next job was going to come from. And in Hollywood, again, you're only as good as your last job. And a lot of people didn't know that coming into the entertainment business. I mean, that's what I saw with the streaming speculators. A lot of these people didn't understand how the business worked. I mean, once you get a green light, again, you make that green light work for you as you're saving your money. And again, you make sure that you make this show the best it can be. But many of these people who came into streaming and the streaming boom, basically, a lot of these people, they were inexperienced as related to making films, like in the case of the She-Hulk show, or you had people who basically did not understand the business of entertainment. And since they didn't understand the business of entertainment, they basically thought, oh, I got a green light, I'm gonna be here for years. No, if you get a green light, you're lucky if you can be there for as long as you can get your stuff, as your project picked up. And as you're there, you get your money up front, because this may be your first and last opportunity to be able to make any money. And that's what any smart person understands. They understand that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you're not possibly going to be able to find jobs in this industry maybe for years at a time. I mean, there are people out here who've won Academy Awards who haven't worked for years because people either think that they cost too much or they just can't find the right script. And sometimes those folks have to go out here and wind up taking direct-to-video. Used to take direct-to-video projects, and they had to take whatever they could find because, again, it's all about getting a job. And again, jobs have always been scarce in the entertainment industry. And that's what many people are finding out the hard way. They're finding out the hard way that, these jobs are hard to get and even harder to keep because they are very unstable. Again, a lot of people I see have been spoiled by network television, like networks like CBS. I mean, networks like CBS, basically, where you could stay on NCIS for 25 years, or you could stay on a show like Blue Bloods for 14 years. I mean, that was never the standard. I mean, old school entertainment, TV shows only lasted maybe 5-7 years, and then you had to go find yourself some other job, whether it be in a movie in a supporting role, whether it be in a direct-to-video film, whether it be on a cable show. You needed to find a job because you needed to make a living. But the whole thing is, again, these jobs were scarce and there was very, very stiff competition. And that competition has gotten more stiff because the streaming bubble has popped. And as the streaming bubble has popped, the venture capitalists are no longer just throwing money at any old production. No, the venture capitalists and the hedge fund guys see that the chances of getting a profit in entertainment are slim to none, which is always the case because 90% of the TV shows fail in most cases in a TV season. Many of the movies struggle or bomb at the box office like the Thunderbolts currently has. Again, it's always been a risk business, but a seasoned executive knows how to mitigate risk, and the way they used to mitigate risk was by, yes, they would have one blockbuster production, but then they would have smaller budget films all throughout the year to be able to mitigate that cost. So the smaller budget films, they're no longer being made, and if they are made, they're sent to streaming, where they basically wind up losing as related to profit, because streaming is like, as I see it, like a reprocessed version of syndication. It's basically, again, syndication on concentrate, because syndication back then, again, was a place where they basically sent shows to, again, build an audience and generate revenue from licensing. But the whole thing is people don't know how to do streaming. And again, we send products to streaming and have conditioned people to wait for streaming, basically cutting off Hollywood's ability to generate revenue, because Hollywood's original business model was all about generating revenue first at the theaters, then generating revenue at video, home video, then getting revenue through syndication at the cable channels by selling commercials and ads between these edited movies. And streaming basically was a way for them to make money off companies like Netflix and Tubi, which would buy the content, bringing revenue to the studio. But the whole thing is the streaming model derailed everything, and the streaming bubble popped everything. And now a lot of people out here who moved to Hollywood as part of the streaming boom and thought they were going to go on to have careers are now finding out things are a lot harder. And what makes this progressively worse is that those in Hollywood are finding out how hard it is, because now they've got competition for productions. Now they've got productions going on in Vancouver where it's cheaper to film. They got productions going on in Georgia where it's cheaper to film, and they're looking to open up places. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, I think he's opening up a place in Virginia, and you've got a guy opening up a place in the Midwest. Again, studios are no longer centralized in Los Angeles anymore, and they're not centralized there because Governor Gavin Newsom has made it where it's not economically viable to do business there, and people are basically, again, who are in Los Angeles, thinking they're going to pull a profit. No, the studios have basically no longer are consolidated there anymore, and production companies are moving outside because they can get better tax breaks and they can get workers to work for cheaper without having to deal with the unions and deal with unions like SAG-AFTRA and WGA. I mean, a lot of this started with Haim Saban with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He basically made that show non-union, but was able to get on Fox and again was able to build an audience with that show. But the whole situation as related to Hollywood is, again, people are having a hard time finding jobs because the entertainment business has changed, and has changed for the much more worse compared to the days of the 1980s and 1990s. I mean, we've got a lot of consolidation, and again, people look at it and go, oh, it's just the streaming. No, this has been going on for nearly 30 years. The entire industry has been changing, and a lot of people are not really looking at the big picture as related to why they can't find jobs. They can't find jobs because, again, we have all this consolidation in media, and even A-list actors are finding a hard time finding work. I mean, even A-list actors who haven't worked for years, and they haven't worked because, again, the studios aren't making projects as much as they used to, because we've got this bad tunnel vision. We've got this bad tunnel vision as related to many of these executives caught up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and superhero movies. And things are not looking good because, again, a lot of these networks, they really don't make diverse content anymore, and they're not incentivized to because they're not regulated to. And with there being no competition between the networks anymore, people just aren't really incentivized to, again, greenlight projects. I mean, it's hard to get a project greenlit these days. It's hard to get a project approved for production. It's very hard to get stuff out there. And it's something people aren't really understanding. It always was hard. I mean, yeah, we had a boom we came out of. Again, speculators came in and were greenlighting everything. But a lot of that stuff is not really able to get eyeballs because now people are watching other things like YouTube. They have their favorite YouTubers who now have 1 million subscribers or are doing very well. But when it comes to TV shows, you're not making as much money because you have to spend so much in production these days, especially if you're in California. You have all the union workers who do deserve their pay as working in front of and behind the camera. Then you have production costs, and it's hard to get your revenue back through ad revenue these days because most people aren't putting commercials on TV anymore because they can't get the eyeballs on it because we fragmented our media. And all of this is because this is reasons why you can't find jobs in entertainment. I mean, you can't find jobs in front of or behind the camera because the studios basically, again, are consolidated. And again, there's no competition, and you've got complacent executives complacent executives who don't want to compete, don't want to, again, challenge themselves, and all of this was put into place by a piece of federal legislation known as the Telecom Act of 1996. And as the government went to deregulate media, it basically created a media landscape where it's basically where Hollywood is on the brink of going out of business, all because of a bad piece of legislation that was passed nearly 30 years ago. Now, if you want to learn more about Hollywood and the struggles of actresses in Hollywood, you can pick up my screenplay book all about Marilyn on Amazon.com and its companion TV series book all about Nikki the Fabulous first season. Both of those screenplay books are available on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And when it comes to those books, they're also all about Nikki's also available on Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and other online booksellers. And if you want to check out all the action-packed fantasy on the SJS Direct universe, you can find all of that in the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the Spinsterella series, and my vampire novel, Eternal Night, my sorority novel, The Thetas, and A Recipe for Success. All those books are available in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com, along with other online booksellers. And if you want to check out my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, it's available on Lulu.com by clicking all of the links in the description box. And if you want to see me make more videos talking about the entertainment industry, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA, from the Black Boule, in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.